Hey friends, Bill here. How you doing? Hope you can hear me okay. I'm sure Heath gets on here. We'll confirm that. But hey, want to chat today about SFOI 1000 football. Lots of games going on today, and wanted to chat with you about that. I'm going to try to start getting on here at least once a week, hopefully on Saturdays, and talk about the games coming up this weekend and anything else that's happening, just to stay on top of it. So hey, let's go through the schedule today and see who is preaching today. Last night, Joe Toy and his crew with the NC State game. Those guys are so faithful. Had a bunch of, I think they had 4 or 5 guys at the NC State game. And then brother Mike Wells was there. He lives in the Tampa area. He happened to be in town. And so I texted Joe that Mike was there. And actually, I love this connecting guys together. Actually, Tommy Waltz was at a parade last night preaching. And so Mike Wells got to join Tommy and a couple of guys, so they connected there in Raleigh, North Carolina. But Joe was at the NC State game. Thursday night, Gerardo O'Bara was at the Texans game. And so we got the weekend going well. Let's see who else is up. Today is Richard Walker at University of Oklahoma. Game starts a couple hours, noon Eastern time. Michael Coughlin is at Ohio State. He's been going to those games forever. I think Michael has a couple of veteran friends, Mike Stockwell and Robert Gray up there joining him. So they should have a good time. This afternoon, 12:30 Pacific time, Mason Goodnight supposed to be at the Oregon game. 12:45 today, Alex Burke's supposed to be at the Georgia game. He's always got a good crew. Those guys have been faithful there for 10 years. Lord Will and John Parsons will be at the University of Alabama game at 1 p.m. Central Time. David Day at Auburn today at 1 o'clock Central Time. Grayson Shaw at Georgia Southern, Statesboro, Georgia at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Let's see, Tom Shepard should be at the Texas-San Antonio game at 2:30 Central Time. And Francisco Nieves at the University of Texas game in Austin, Texas at 2:30 Central Time. Also, Mark Renan should be at the Florida Atlantic University game in Boca Raton at 3 o'clock Eastern Time. John Crowley at Central Florida and Orlando at 4 o'clock. Nick O'Berry at Columbia, 4:15, Columbia, South Carolina, for the South Carolina Gamecocks game, 4:15 p.m. Tom Brewer at Baton Rouge, LSU, tonight, 6:45. And those are wild games. Have you ever been to a nighttime LSU game? You've got to go preach on there sometime. It's Death Valley, and people from Louisiana, they drink quite a bit more than everybody else. It's pretty much a phenomenon. When we were in Atlanta, and after Katrina, and all those Saints fans came up and LSU fans came up. It was nuts. So those people, drinking it's not like it's just part of life. They get after it. So those games at night there in Baton Rouge, Death Valley should be wild again. Kevin Talixon at Penn State, University Park as well. And then Doug Renz at Georgia Tech at 7 o'clock and Dave Dorman at the University of Cincinnati tonight. So let's see what's happening tomorrow. John Cole was supposed to be in Nashville at the Tennessee Titans game. Heath Pucel, we'll talk to him about this. He'll be at the Packers game. Him and Dan Davis, faithful men. They've been going there for years. Dave Dorman at the Bengals game. And then at 1 o'clock start, Matt DeJesus at 2:05 Mountain Time start at the Arizona Cardinal games at Glendale, Arizona. David Robert tomorrow at 3:25 Central Time for the Saints games. And we talked about Gerardo. So lots of opportunity out there to preach. This link will be below the video. So if you are in one of those areas, I'm going to roll through them one more time and talk. Just mention the cities where everybody's preaching today, and if that gets your attention, then click the link on this video, and you should be able to contact them. So we've got today Oklahoma, Norman, Oklahoma, Columbus, Ohio, Eugene, Oregon, Athens, Georgia, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Auburn, Alabama, Statesboro, Georgia, Williamsburg. San Antonio, Texas, Austin, Texas, Boca Raton, Florida, Orlando, Florida, Columbia, South Carolina, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, University Park, Pennsylvania, Atlanta, Georgia, and Cincinnati, Ohio. Tomorrow, Nashville, Tennessee, Green Bay, Wisconsin, Cincinnati, Ohio, Glendale, Arizona, New Orleans, Louisiana, and Houston, Texas. So a lot of opportunity out there for gospel preaching. So always on these banners we have for the SFO 1000 games, there's always an email in there. So email the guys if you're in the area and join them, or if you know somebody in the area, come join them as well. I do want to talk for a minute about the Grey Cup last weekend in Winnipeg, Canada. It's a great time. It's our fourth Grey Cup. The Grey Cup is the Super Bowl for the Canadian Football League, and we've been to four, like I said, and there have been basically SFOI Evangelists 3 prior Grey Cup. So let's just say 7 total, and it's a good event. You know, Canadian sports is not as well developed as the United States. Of course, they only have like 30 million people in that huge country, a massive landmass, and so they have a somewhat of a disadvantage. But they're getting better promoting, especially the CFL. They've had NHL teams for a long time, and but football is different, and in fact, their rules are a little bit different. They only have 3 downs, and the field is bigger, stuff like that. So it's not an identical game as here in the States. But they get a lot of fans. It is a big deal for the fans. It's a big deal for the league. I would say it's the biggest sporting event that they have in the country. They've got some MLS teams and stuff like that, but a nationwide sporting event, CFL, is going to be it. And so 4 days this year in Winnipeg, Canada. Now, Winnipeg is basically due north of Minneapolis and has a huge potential of being very cold. It was only about 30 degrees this time, and so the weather was not a factor. A couple years ago, we were in Regina. I guess that is Saskatchewan, and it was the coldest I've ever been. It was like 0 degrees, and the wind was blowing, and I was in my Carhartts. It was rough, but the fans were there. Even on game day, they came out in their jerseys and beers, and so those people are resilient. But this year, it wasn't that cold. So there were 5 of us there preaching. I'm going to try to put some links here as well, and it was a great time. So Ernie from Vancouver and Daniel Basasso from St. Catharines, Canada were there. St. Catharines is near Niagara Falls. And then Sterling Long from Athens, Georgia, basically, and Nick O'Berry from Graniteville, South Carolina, and I were there, and had a good time. We stayed with, I love this part too, Michael Rutherford is also a friend in Canada. He lives in Swift Current. So Michael had come several years ago to the G3 conference and met or contacted somebody who knew Bobby McCrary, and he stayed with Bobby, so he got to know Bobby. That's how Michael and I originally met. And then eventually, this was probably 5 or 6 years ago, somehow we met Michael, went up for an event and met him, and so got to know him. And so he, Swift Current is there really by Winnipeg. It's about an hour or so due west. So anyway, this was his mom. He's from Winnipeg. And so we stayed at her house with her husband. And, you know, when Christian people have hospitality, it was a wonderful thing, and they were very hospitable. They had a big house. We each had our own room, which is important when you evangelize. And they had a big room for us to pray, and they served us a couple of meals. So that really made the trip easy, because sometimes finding good lodging, especially in other nations, the U.S. has just so much possibility when it comes to lodging, but up there it's not quite as developed. So anyway, this worked out really well. Got a rental car, drove back and forth about 40 minutes every day. So that was that. And then we went down. The Fan Fest was downtown Winnipeg at the University of Winnipeg, on a particular street, Spence Street. It's about a quarter mile long. And so the 5 of us went down there every day and preached and tracked and so forth. And I like being in the same place every day because you get to know people, and that worked out really well. And so a couple of points on that. Daniel was really Basasso. He's good at talking to people. He would go up and engage people in long conversations. He also has a lot of background. He used to be a professional photographer, videographer, and so he did some of that kind of stuff. Film their testimony a little bit and post it, so that worked out really well. And then so he and Nick were team all weekend on one end, and the way the street was, since it was on a campus, of course the campus was surrounded by city streets, we could get on the sidewalk at both ends of the Spence Street and preach. And so Nick did a lot of preaching. On the other end was Sterling and Ernie, and so they got into it. Sterling, of all people. Sterling is from Rhodesia. And the guy that owned the market right there where they were standing, of course, Sterling's very outgoing, and they met him, and he actually lives in Durban, South Carolina. So lots of good connections there. Everybody, so they were out there evangelizing. Plus, just interacting with people. I got a video of this guy coming up to Sterling while he was preaching. He is really, really upset, and you'll see this on this page as well once we get it posted. So had a good time. I think I've got one of Daniel talking to somebody. I think the best story for me, though, is this young man came up and said long story short, I asked him, how can I pray for you? And I said, he said, I want to be bold, basically, so he could preach. And I said, why don't you come out here next tomorrow at noon, and we'll get into it and see what he wants to do. So he came back. Sure enough, he was willing to get up and preach, and he preached for an hour, and I love that. So fantastic. Got a first-time preacher up there. We also saw two other guys evangelizing, going through the Fan Fest, passing out tracts. Canadians are just not as aggressive as Americans, and so it's great to see that those guys were out there as well. And so lots of tracts sown on game day on Sunday at Prince Otto Stadium on the University of Manitoba. I think the place holds about 30,000 people. We got there in position by 1, game time at 5. Daniel and Nick in one area caught the crowd coming out one way. We got some pictures on that. And Sterling and Ernie at the other end, and they were preaching down there. So got gospel tracts to people. People heard the gospel. People talked to us. Just the whole typical stuff, man. It was a wonderful, wonderful outreach. So hopefully I've got plenty of pictures. I got to label them. So that was fantastic. The Grey Cup was fantastic. One more thing, and then we're going to bring on Heath Pucel to talk about his ministry at the Packer games and the his football weekends he's had this fall. As we want to talk about bowl season, we're starting to look for leaders for bowl games. There's 42 bowl games, including the two All-Star games and the championship game. And so I think we've got about 15 or so leaders. I'm going to do 4 games. There are 4 games in Florida. I think, and then about 6 or 8 guys committed yesterday, last night, and already had a couple. So we're moving on. So here, I want you to check out the list. I'm going to read through the bowl game list right here and tell you where they're at. If you live near one, and you can preach at it, lead the team, recruit people to go, let me know. I'd love for every game to be full. Let's see, bowl games. Oh, that's right. Hey, I'll do this. We'll roll through the title and the city. Well, Celebration Bowl in Atlanta. Alex Burt's doing that on the 16th. On the 13th is LA Bowl in Los Angeles. On the 16th, Gary Gardner's leading the IS4 Salute to Veterans Bowl, Montgomery and Crampton Bowl in Montgomery, Alabama. 68 Ventures Bowl, Mobile. Don't have anybody from Mobile. Staff DNA Cure Bowl, Orlando. John Crowley will be there. Myrtle Beach Bowl, no one there. Gasparilla Bowl, I'll be there for that, and that's in Tampa. Famous Idaho Bowl, Rod Grubb was going to do that one on December 22. Frisco's Coffee Bowl, Scooter's Frisco Bowl, I think. Lord willing, Will Dietrich will do that. And Frisco, Texas, Boca Raton Bowl on the 23rd. Hopefully, Mark Manan. New Orleans Bowl in New Orleans. Hopefully, Dave Robert do that. Hawaii Bowl. Hey, if you want to go to Hawaii, let me know. We'll get the Hawaii Bowl going. Game Above Sports in Detroit. I think he's looking for somebody there. Rate Bowl, Phoenix, Arizona. Chase Field, Diego Sandoval. The Serve Pro First Responder Bowl, Gerald Ford. You can't we'll keep talking about it. Hope you can. Well, let's bring Heath on, chat with him. Heath,
Hey Bill, how you doing?
can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Well, good to see you. How's Green Bay today?
Cold.
Oh, really? You already got there? It's already cold? Cold
Yeah.
season? What's the temperature?
Like 24.
No, are you kidding?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's colder than Winnipeg was. So, well, what do you do? Do you just make a mental change and say it's going to be cold for a while, or how do you handle that?
Yeah. And you just break out the cold weather gear.
Yeah. You wear Carhartts?
I wear fleece lined pants and an Under Armour base layer.
Gotcha. Well, does it keep you warm?
Yeah.
Really? What
Yeah.
kind of gloves do you use?
I actually use multi lined. So I have like a thin layer glove and then I have a fleece type glove that's very
Gotcha.
pliable to be able to use with, holding your Bible in tracks. And then I also have rechargeable hand warmers. So
There you go. Well, Daniel had a rechargeable vest.
yeah,
Do you have one of those?
I don't, not yet.
That's cheating. I mean, you just can't. What can you complain about if everything's warm? You know what I mean? So
Well, there's wisdom.
that's true. That's true. That is true. Man, I tell you. Well, cool. Well, tell us about, first thing I want to ask you about is the football weekends. Tell us about that. You've done about two or three, got one more coming up. And
Yeah,
what is the football weekend and try to encourage someone to do that where they live? And how's it
yeah,
gone so far?
yeah. So a football weekend. This is a concept that happened, several years ago with I think Jason Bradshaw in Michigan. And what he would do is he would design an outreach over the weekend where there was either a college game and or um, a major league basketball or a major league baseball game, basketball game, some other sport as well, and then an NFL game. So you had like a college game and then another sport and then an NFL game all in the same weekend. So whether it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whether it's an all day Saturday and Sunday, and it gives you a chance to really immerse yourself in not only the different sporting events that are going on, but in the community that you live in. And it's kind of waned for a little bit. So I know right after Labor Day, we were trying to figure out a way to get back into Michigan where we had at least a Michigan Wolverines game or a Michigan State game and a Detroit Lions game all in the same weekend. So they're all at home. And we happened to pick the weekend that there was a noon kickoff for the Michigan game, a 3:30 kickoff for the Michigan State game, and then a noon game or a 1 o'clock Eastern game in Detroit. So we found that weekend and we went. We took the drive over to Detroit, spent some time with some of the other evangelists there and a couple of pastors there, and we're able to preach at all three games. And it just immerses you in to the mindset of being on the go as an open air evangelist. And then a couple of weekends ago, I went to Indianapolis, and the same thing. There was a Purdue game on Saturday, and we were hoping to get an Indiana University game at like either 3:30 or 7:30 on Saturday, but that also happened to be a noon game. So we caught the pregame for Purdue, we caught the after game for Indiana, and then it was a 4 o'clock game for the Indianapolis Colts. So we I got a chance to preach with Stephen Kendall and Brian Nine and the guys that were there. And then coming up here on Black Friday, so Thanksgiving weekend, Purdue has their annual like interstate game with Indiana University, and that's on Friday night. So I'm gonna go down there and preach with Stephen Kendall at the Purdue game, and then on Saturday, we thought the Illini game, the Illinois game in Champaign, was going to be a noon game. It's actually a 6:30 game.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is we're going to preach at Lucas Oil Stadium in the morning. It's an Indianapolis or an Indiana state football
Oh, really?
championship weekend there as
Oh,
well.
really?
So we're going to preach like the first round of that. Then we're
Yeah.
going to drive over and meet Ken Heisel in Champaign.
Cool.
We're going to preach at the Illini game, and then the Indianapolis Colts have a 1 o'clock game.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah,
You like that? You like the speed of it all, the quick schedule?
I do like the quick schedule. I think it keeps you immersed and focused,
Yeah.
and especially once you gain momentum in ministry, you're able to keep that momentum without kind of like the highs and lows that go on, since you're kind of somewhat always on the go.
Yeah. That's cool. So how's that different than just going to a Packers game downtown?
I would say, you still kind of prepare the same, but I think with a weekend that's kind of fully immersive, like kind of like you recognize that, like the NFL draft,
Yeah,
it's like a continuous, momentum where you're not just preaching for a couple of hours and then it kind of
that's true. It's a
you're
good point.
done.
Yeah, that's cool. Did you happen to see anybody from one day to the next that you saw the day before
No, not between the
in
you
Michigan
know
or in?
yeah, not between Michigan and Michigan State. We didn't notice a difference between the two. What we did notice, at least in Michigan State, was some of the students noticed that we were different, as in like we weren't normally
Oh,
guys that
really?
were there. I
Oh,
mean,
really?
we partnered with a couple of brothers that continually preach at the Michigan State games,
Oh, really?
but a couple of students noticed that we were there,
Yeah.
and they were wondering if we were going to come back during the week
Oh, really?
to be on campus. And I shared with them, no, we were only here for the weekend, but got a chance to encourage them. They were really encouraged by us being out there preaching the word during game time.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Why do
Yeah.
you think you stood out?
Um, I know there's been some questionable whether you can use amplification, not use amplification, whatever the case.
Yeah.
Um, and we had some great favor there. But I think it was a matter of preaching faithfully the word of God, because as one of the things that they stopped was because of the fact that we were staying faithful to the word of God. So it was different than possibly some of the other preaching that had gone on in campus.
Gotcha.
And part of it was their comment was he's preaching the word.
Yeah. And they knew it. That's good. Well, that's what you want. Well done.
Right.
Well, cool. Did you find that the crowds were different at the different stadiums, or are they relatively similar?
They were quite different between Michigan and Michigan State. You see in Michigan, there's a different feel, there's a different flavor to the crowd. They seem to be a little bit more, I don't know if I can really put it elitist.
Which one,
Um,
Michigan?
Michigan.
Okay.
It just seems like the crowd has a different feel to it, where Michigan State seemed a little bit more relaxed.
Gotcha.
And maybe it's because of the size of the stadiums, the place where they're located. It might have been because Michigan has a more successful career than Michigan State, but there was a significant difference in, I think, in how the crowds reacted per se.
Now, y'all went to the Lions game on Sunday, didn't you?
Hmm.
That's quite a bit different. I've done those with Jason.
Yeah, and we were outside that courthouse,
Yeah.
so we were outside the courthouse on that corner where we've been previously. But what was interesting is the week before that, we had the Lions in Green Bay. And I happened to meet a family there who came up to encourage us and pray with us while they were here in Green Bay. And I asked them, I said, "Are you going to be at the Lions game next week?" And they're like, "Well, we're going to be back in Detroit." I said, "I know." I said, "But are you going to be there?"
Yeah.
And they said, "Yes." I said, "Well, I'm actually going to be in Detroit that weekend preaching at the game. Here's where I'm going to be at." And I told them that we are going to be right outside that courthouse. And I said, "If you're there early enough, come by and see us." And before kickoff, they came by and they
Did they
stopped
really?
by to see us. And
Awesome.
yeah, so kind of got pictures of both them in Green Bay and
Yeah.
praying with them. And then had Greg take a picture of us there in Detroit.
That's awesome, man. Praise
Yeah.
the Lord. Well, cool, cool. Well, that's a good idea. So, what would you say? Last couple of questions. We'll talk about the Packers. What would you say is the well, a good travel distance, like a max travel distance on these weekends that you're
Um,
looking to?
I would say it's up to the, I guess you could say, individual. If you're going to do like a circuit per se of going from weekend to weekend to weekend, I think you would try to put it in a geographical location. I think for me in the Wisconsin area, either Minneapolis, Chicago, or Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, possibly Iowa, within for me about 5 to 6 hours is very doable.
I wonder how far Iowa State is from each other because those are pretty good. Iowa's got a pretty good team.
Yeah, I think I checked that out once, and they're quite a bit of distance.
Yeah,
They're like 2.5 hours between each other.
gotcha.
So that might not necessarily be conducive. I know with Michigan State, there was like an hour difference between the two.
All right, man, fantastic. Well, we want to encourage everybody to look on the map and see who's nearby you. We did that for a couple of years, and when I was in Atlanta, I mean, it was a lot of fun. That's how you got out and saw so much of the area and
Yeah,
what things were. Yeah, and that's at least for what we're trying to do. That's really helpful to see the lay of the land, so to speak, and all that good stuff. Well, tell us about the Packers game. How many years has it been, and that you and Dan and the company been out there?
yeah. It's interesting because I had somebody asked me that, and I was trying to figure it out. I said it was been roughly 10 years, and then shortly after that, there was a post that showed up on one of my memories on social media. Um,
Yeah,
it's been about 15 years
15 years.
at
Huh?
the Packer games.
That's pretty cool. 2010. So, what has happened in 15 years that I mean, you may not remember these things, but what has really happened in 15 years?
There's a lot that's been happened in 15 years. I mean, we've had teams grow, we've had teams kind of dissipate as people have moved on to different areas of ministry. We've gained more of a almost like a stable, a stability there.
Yeah.
The past couple of games, I noticed, just a couple of fans walking past that are season ticket holders, and they saw Dan there. And interestingly, two different guys, but they both said the same thing. They both pointed in that direction and said, "There he is."
Yeah.
And you overhear them talking to their friends who said, "Where? Who is?"
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, the preachers. They're out here all the time."
Yeah.
Um,
That's
or
good.
yeah, or I think one of the most heartwarming comments I had heard, and I think this guy was kind of being, you know, um, sarcastic when he said it. But when we were preaching, he walked past and he said, "I know it's game day when you guys are out here preaching about Jesus."
That's cool. That's a nice compliment. Yeah.
So, yeah, it was quite interesting. We built some other things that have happened is we built that relationship. I know you've talked about it in the past with like some of the ticket scalpers who are selling tickets and being able to minister to them. Some of the other performers. There's a trombone player that's been out there year after year after year, and has been a great opportunity to check in with him at least when I see him out there during the games and just touch base with him. How's everything? How's life?
Yeah.
Um, so you start to build not just a relationship per se with the fans noticing that you're being there, but also an opportunity with those that are there regularly as well. I think one of the other opportunities that was there, we had a guy from New York, and he was when the Giants actually came to Green Bay a couple of years in a row. He would show up and he was walking down the place where we normally minister. And the first time we met him, he gave us some encouragement and said, "I hope to see you guys back out here, when I'm back in town again." And, it was the next year and they came back into town and here he came walking up again. And he
Yeah.
said, "I was hoping and praying on the way here that you guys would still be out here."
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Love to do. That's good. That's
Yeah.
a testimony.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So, who has Dan been with you all those 15 years?
Um, For the most part, yes.
Yeah, I noticed too. We were there last year for the spring for the draft, and you knew everybody. You knew the Sheboygan. What's the name of the county where the stadium is?
Oh, Ashwaubenon.
Schwabenot.
Yeah.
So you knew the chief, and you knew that chaplain
Hmm.
and all that stuff. So being out there certainly allows you to get to know all the players and all that kind of good stuff, and they get to know you. And by
Yep.
the way, did the church sell their property? Do they keep it?
From what I've heard, they did sell their
Yeah,
property.
yeah,
They're moving not far. They're only a couple blocks away
right.
that they're moving to. But yeah, as far as I had heard, they had sold their property to the Green Bay Packers, and I think they're going to turn that over into parking.
Gotcha. Cool. Awesome. So, what couple things, and I'll let you go.
Yeah.
You say about well, obviously being faithful to the Packer games has led to the idea of doing the football weekends. What things? What do you learn about being? What do you learn about preaching when you're faithful that you don't really get when you're not consistent? Shall we say?
Um, you get to learn more about, I guess you could say, your audience that you're preaching to. Since it is a consistent audience, I mean, yes, you have visiting teams coming back and forth, but you start to get a feel for some of the things that are going on as people walk past, as people will either give their heckling comments as they drive past or their encouragement. I think you learn that by being out there, people expect you to be out there, and therefore, when you're there, when something happens, that they would come to you. Another quick story: there's a guy who does like limousine travel from Milwaukee, up to Green Bay. And we've met him pretty much this whole season. And he's been ministering to, a secular singer in one of the bands that plays quite often. And he was able to minister to him while he had cancer going on and just share the gospel with him and kind of spur him on. And every time he's been here for a game, he comes up by us and walks past us and just gives us updates,
Yeah.
on his discipleship with him. And we get a time to pray with him. So, people start to realize that you're a mainstay there.
Yeah.
And you realize that you are truly you're a minister to, all of the Packer fans, all of the visiting fans.
That's the way they see you.
Hmm.
Doesn't matter what you think about yourself. They look at you that way. You get judged that way. Well, he's not a good minister. I'm not going to talk to him. He does a good job. I'm going to talk to him, right?
Right, right.
So yeah, that's what we always talk about. So that's fascinating. What is one more question? So what is the part of preaching every game, 15 years that you've enjoyed the most?
Good question.
Yeah,
I would say the thing that I've enjoyed the most is ultimately seeing God work.
that's a good answer.
And not just a pat answer, but I mean seeing God work in building us, that faithfulness. Whether we've had some encounters with security, whether we've had sometimes some encounters with police, encounters with fans, we've had advocacy there, I guess you could say. So although eventually we got the whole situation resolved with the security team, and having us be out there. Since that situation, they leave us alone. No, nobody comes out to talk to us anymore. So I think it's a matter of we're there, we're faithful. They realize that we're not going anywhere. So let's just resolve the situation. For the most part, again, the Ashwaubenon police, they know we've been out there faithfully. They know what we're like. They know our character. They know our conduct. They know that ultimately, if someone is going to bring, per se, um, a charge against us, not every police officer knows who we are. So when I say they, it's a broad brush, as in, the Ashwaubenon police are familiar with the fact that we're out there. But most of the time, the officers that have been there and are seasoned recognize us, and they know that more than likely there had to have either been an extreme circumstance that happened, or there's not a, there's not validity per se to the claim. Um, and then even when you have other like event staff going on, so sometimes we have waste management who, kind of cleans out the garbage cans and everything along those lines. And I remember there was one guy who was giving me a hard time, and he was just being belligerent.
Yeah.
And they walked over and they said, "Come on, man, here, let's kind of get you over here." And the guy wouldn't go, and they said, "Look, come on, let this guy do what he's doing. If you don't agree with it, that's fine." And the guy was like, "No, I'm going to stay here." And they said, "Look, if you don't stop, we're going to call the police." Because they already recognized that this could be a situation that would escalate.
Was he
And he's like,
arresting you? Were they arresting you? Was this guy yelling at you or something?
well, he was kind of yelling at me, didn't like the message,
Right.
and just they wanted to just move him on, is what they wanted to do. And when they said, "Well, we're going to call the police," he's like, "Go ahead, call them." And at the time, he had gotten a little bit close to my personal space, so I asked him to take a step back, and he said, like, "No, I'm not going to do that." So when the police did show up and they came over to talk to him, one of the other guys was sharing with him what was going on, and they called the guy over, and the police officers were asking him, they're like, "Well, were you in this guy's personal space or anything along those lines?" And he's like, "Absolutely not." And I paused because I kind of overheard this while I was preaching. I paused and I looked straight at him and I said, "Now you're really going to lie to an officer like that?" I said, "I asked you to take a step back." And I said, "No." You said, "No, I will not take a step back." And the officer was like, "Did you say that?" And the guy was like, "Oh, yeah, I guess I did. I'm sorry."
That's funny.
And, then he started to argue with the policeman about the fact that he had every right to be there. And the officer said, "You have every right to be there, but you don't have the right to be in his personal space."
Right, right.
And he said, "You can stand there 3 feet away and you can do whatever you want." He's like, "But if you take a step closer," he said, "you're coming with me."
Right, right.
So, it's those types of, instances where you see the consistency, you see the character that's built out there, you see the fact that we're faithful ambassadors for the gospel, and that gains a lot of favor. So that's why I kind of qualify that to say it's God's favor over the years of us being out there.
That's a good word. That's true. We learn those lessons. You see the practical reality of the scripture and how they exhort us on to pray and
Hmm.
conduct ourselves. So that's
Yeah.
good. That's good. Okay, Heath. Well, sounds good. What's happening today for you?
Today, just prep work,
All right.
prep work for tomorrow.
Is Greg going with you tomorrow?
Greg will be, yes, he'll be at the one of the other gates,
Okay.
and then Dan and Jonathan, I think, will be in our normal spot unless we decide to switch it up. I think we're starting to get to a point where we have a lot of guys with us.
Yeah.
So we want to try to cover more ground and kind of switch up the guys that are ministering with each other.
Does Doug come out every game?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Every game, I know he has a service sometimes during like the 3 o'clock
Yeah.
games, but outside of that, he's been faithful.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Well, tell him hey for me if you think about it.
All right, we'll do.
Okay, Heath. Have a good day. Thanks for getting
All right.
on.
Thanks, Bill.
See you. Yeah, great testimony of faithfulness there. 15 years in the Green Bay Packer games. Then you get these ideas. Hey, why don't we preach it a couple games in a day and do a football weekend? So I love the story. So if you are near if you're preaching now to stadium, then check out what's close. In Alabama, of course, I'm a Southern. You've got in Georgia, you've got Georgia Tech. That's an easy connection. Alabama and Auburn. If the game times line up, you can actually do 2 games. The Falcons are home on Sunday. You can do 3 like he's talking about. The Titans play in Nashville, and in Florida, you've got Gainesville and Tampa, or Gainesville and UCF and Orlando. Then you got Jacksonville. So just think it through. Look on the map. Need any questions? Have any questions about it? Let me know. Be glad to connect you together. I just think I think the other thing that we mentioned a little bit is you get out there, you get to see the lay of the land. Okay, here's how far Nashville is. Here's where this is. for me at least, it gives you this perspective about Tuscaloosa's here, UAB's there, Nashville's there, Memphis, and all of a sudden you can calculate what kind of ministry is possible if you get in the car, get an early start, and so forth. So, anyway, good job, Heath. Thanks so much. All right, guys, check on the list below. You'll see the link that says game schedule for today's SFOI 1000 football. I pray for everybody out preaching today and tomorrow on Sunday, and we'll be back soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.